Welcome to this video on professional writing versus academic writing. During this video, we will discuss some of the key differences between academic and professional writing. You might be surprised to learn that 45% of 430 companies surveyed by the Society for Human Resource Management and AARP reported that they were forced to implement some sort of remedial grammar or writing skill training to their workers. This has become such a problem and an expense to employers that many are now requiring potential hires to take reading and writing tests prior to employment. Yikes! Sounds pretty dire, but all is not lost. You're watching this video, and we will highlight aspects of professional writing that so many employers say their employees are lacking. Professional writing refers to the writing you will do on the job, and occasionally for some Rasmussen College course assignments or projects. For example, if you are asked to write a business proposal, a business report, an executive summary, or a memo, these should likely be written in a professional or business style rather than in an academic style. Understandably, sometimes assignments are misunderstood, or perhaps you're simply more familiar with academic writing and are naturally pulled in that direction. That's why it's important to call out academic writing versus professional writing. So what exactly are the differences? There are several key items that differentiate professional business writing from academic writing, including purpose, audience, the subject or topic, tone and language, format, visuals, and sometimes length. Purpose or intent is probably the most important distinction. The purpose of an academic paper or a typical college paper is to show your instructor that you've learned about the topic and you can articulate your thoughts in a written form about the topic. However, for a professional paper, the purpose is to inform, educate, and sometimes persuade the reader. In other words, it is a document that could actually be used, either for making a decision and potentially persuading your reader, or to summarize an important topic or finding, or even to store information for later use, like a policy or a procedure. This leads us to our next crucial distinction, audience. The audience or reader of an academic paper is typically your instructor and sometimes your classmates. For a professional paper, your intended audience could potentially be just one person, for example your boss, or your entire company or an external company. As such, for professional writing, it is important to write for your audience and their level of knowledge on the topic. For your manager, who is likely very familiar with the topic, you probably do not need to provide a lot of background or explanatory information, but for a layperson or someone from an external company, you may have to provide more depth and detail. This provides a nice segue into the topic or subject of your document. For a typical academic assignment, your instructor may have indicated the topic or approved a topic you selected. For professional documents, often the employee determines the need for the written document based upon a certain situation or a question. Often, the employee's manager may also request a written document. For example, you may write a brief proposal in order to convince your supervisors that a certain type of software is needed and preferred to another software to complete a given task. This feeds into tone or style and language. For an academic paper, your tone may be quite formal, whereas for a business document, depending on your audience, it may be less formal. In addition, depending upon your audience, you may also use industry jargon, but be mindful of jargon if writing for an international audience. Or, for a more academic paper, you may eliminate jargon altogether. Professional documents will also utilize active language over passive. For example, you'd write, "The team decided to," rather than, "The decision was made by the team to." In addition, academic papers do not often contain visuals. However, business documents may. Often business documents contain key visuals to draw attention to specific items or to make the information easier to digest and to keep the document skimmable. Finally, the length of a business document is typically shorter than for academic writing. Business documents get to the point, probably like I should be doing with this video. Business documents start with a recommendation or the answer and end with supporting evidence or background information. In addition, for business writing, you may consider starting with an executive summary to clarify your main point, yet still provide relevant data in a lengthier document. Often, to continue the theme of to the point, business documents contain bullet points, bold headings, and other formatting options to chunk the information, make it presentable, and keep the document concise, and ultimately draw attention to just the key topics. Academic writing often has the opposite characteristics. For example, academic writing will often be lengthier, will include hooks and lots of introductory information up front, and typically a great deal of background information is given prior to getting to the point of the document. So let's put this into action. Here is an example of a student using professional writing for a course at Rasmussen College. Note that the writer utilizes an executive summary. She includes purpose, problem, solution, and an action plan in her executive summary, allowing her to get to her point quickly and present the information in a shorter, more skimmable fashion. In addition, it's clear that the writer knows her audience, this being a general audience, and is careful to remove jargon or explain technical terminology. The writer also stays on topic, focusing on her proposal throughout, and everything she includes is justification for her proposal. The proposal is written in such a fashion that she is clearly intending to persuade her audience rather than simply educate her audience. She also utilizes visuals, but the visuals are carefully chosen and are only used to support her proposal. Again, this sets the tone for the document and allows for a more concise, easy to understand document. Hopefully this video and analysis of sample student work has provided helpful information on the topic of professional communication. You can find additional information on our writing guide within the business writing page of the business guide and within a number of our library databases. For help on this topic and more, check out our answers database where you can search our frequently asked questions or chat with a Rasmussen librarian.